Hello and welcome to On the Food Scene with Steve and CookbooksLive.com. It's an honor to have Jane Stern with me today here in New Haven, Connecticut at the Omni Hotel at Yale and John Davenport's restaurant. We had a wonderful meal here this afternoon.
Surprisingly wonderful. I mean, we talked earlier about how rare it is to find a first-rate restaurant in a hotel. This is a first-rate restaurant in a hotel.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and I
Loved
guess it also brings back some wonderful memories because you spent quite a bit of time here in New Haven.
I did.
New Haven, didn't you?
There and there and there and there. There's a wonderful overview of the entire city.
Great, and you were a graduate student here at Yale University.
Yes, I was, and graduated in 1971.
And then you got into the food industry. Tell us a little about that.
You know, I know a lot of people who graduated and then did a 180 in their career. They did not pursue what they studied.
Mm-hmm.
And my writing partner, Michael Stern, and I both graduated from Yale around the same time. And he was in art history and I was in fine arts. And basically, after we got these fancy schmancy degrees, what did we want to do? We wanted to go out on the road and eat. And we didn't really want to pursue gallery life in New York City. So we just learned what we learned and then we invented ourselves.
Yeah, you sure did. And in front of us are four of your, how many books have you authored?
46.
Oh my goodness. And this one over here, I've been in the middle of reading this, is so wonderful. It's basically the life story of you and Michael, isn't it?
Yes, and my favorite quote on the back, Jane and Michael Stern are America's premier roadside anthropologists from the New York Times. How cool are we?
That is, and food really does tell history, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, you and I were just talking earlier about foods that were popular in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and I think what makes food vital and what certainly we sampled at the restaurant today was how American food keeps refreshing itself.
Mm-hmm.
And what was popular 20 years ago is old hat today, and there's something better comes down the pipe.
And does anything ever recycle back into popularity?
Yes. I think quiche is probably due for a resurgence, but there was a period in the 1980s when Nouvelle cuisine was popular, and nobody wanted to make sort of classic meat and potatoes recipes, and then Michael and I wrote a book called Square Meals, which came out, I think, in 1982, and it celebrated comfort food.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying we started the look backwards, but people suddenly, meatloaf and mashed potatoes were very chic instead of just, awkward and clunky.
And that's on a lot of menus these days. Meatloaf.
Totally.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, and on fancy menus too.
Yes, I've seen that. And this is sort of the standard of your collection.
That was the first food book, not this particular edition. The first road food book came out in 1973, and we have been updating it every year since then, or every 2 years. We have roadfood.com, which is the very modern version of Road Food, the book, which is a big, very popular website that we run. But Road Food, the book, is the classic, I'm going to take a road trip, I'm going to go from point A to point B. I don't want to eat fast food along the way. Where do I eat? Where do I eat regional American food? And this is the book that will tell you.
And this one over here is fairly new, and this one is the best of the best.
Yeah, it is the best of the best, because when Michael and I are interviewed, as I'm sure is the case with you or any food person, the first thing people want to know is, if you only could eat one fried chicken, where would it be? One apple pie, where would it be? So this is really, as you put it, is the best of the best.
And this one over here, I had this in my collection before we even met.
Wonderful.
I love the picture, Jane. It's so cool.
You. Yes.
And this one...
This is like Mad Men, like the TV show. It's that era, martinis and...
Sure.
And roast duck and fancy food.
And you have a new edition of Road Food coming out in March of 2011.
Yes, and very updated. It's enormous. I think the manuscript was like 826
Wow.
pages. It looks like the New York Yellow Pages, but you've got to keep up. And
Sure.
I was looking in this edition, which is I think from the 80s, and we only had 2 little restaurants in Nebraska. Now we've probably got 30.
Wow.
So anywhere you go in the United States.
And we're looking forward to having you at an event coming up in the
I
spring
can't
where you're
wait.
going to be our keynote speaker, and your new book will be available to have to share with the audience.
That's so wonderful.
Yeah. But I want to thank you for sharing
My
a few moments
pleasure.
here in New Haven.
It's always great to see you.
Yes, it's a
always
pleasure.
great to eat with you, and you always make the best recommendations.
Well, I'm glad that you had a great afternoon.
Totally.
For On the Food Scene with Steve from New Haven, Connecticut, I'm here with Jane Stern from The Road Food. Thanks so much, Jane.